This is the Dealer Playbook. Hey, what's going on? Thanks for joining us for session 85 of the Dealer Playbook Podcast, where every week we deliver creative strategies for you, today's automotive professionals. My name is Michael Cirillo, joined by Robert Wiseman. What's going on? Hey, man. What's up, brother?
Looking forward to this one. You lined up the guest, and I'm going to be totally honest. I mean, when you came to me with the guest name, I was like, who is that? And it's kind of funny because, I mean, the dude's everywhere. And he's like the closest to my geographic location that we've ever had a guest.
Ever in the history of the Dealer Playbook.
Yeah, we're like 4 hours away from each other. He's in Vancouver. You guys, I'm super pumped about getting people into this episode. It's a pretty in-depth episode, but it's on subject matter that we've never had on the show. So I'm really pumped to introduce you guys, and Robert and I are pumped to introduce you guys to Trevor Turnbull. He's our guest today. He's a LinkedIn marketing speaker expert. And today, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm taking from this is we're going to walk you through, or Trevor's going to walk you through how to unlock the power of LinkedIn. And I'm pumped, man, because we never talk about this. It's always Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram, and now Snapchat, right? Gary Vee's been hitting on that. So, I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, Gary Vee, again, he brings on Snapchat, but he talks about using it in a way like this is designed. We're going to talk about using it for you, the sales professional, LinkedIn, and how you can, optimize your profile and really get the most out of this growing network that if you're not hip to the value in there, of course, Trevor's going to knock that out in the beginning and clear up any questions or anything you might have with that. And you want to make sure you stick around to the end because he's going to tell you about a free gift that you can get from him that takes you through the lead generation, funnel for LinkedIn to help you really pull some car buyers in your area, your locale, off of LinkedIn. It's going to be great, man. I'm ready to jump into this one. This is a great one. Again, guys, this one goes a little bit longer than usual, but believe me, it could have went a lot longer.
Let's do it. Here we go. And here we go. Team DPB. This is the time to hear from the LinkedIn expert, Trevor Turnbull. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys.
So glad I got your name right. All right. So, you know what? We're really looking forward to this because, when we look at those that listen to our show, we'd say a large variety of sales professionals. And really, when it comes to social media and social marketing and putting yourself out there, building a brand or whatever it might be, really heavy on Facebook and Instagram now. People are talking Snapchat. There's a million and one things. Where people are speculating over the demise of Twitter these days or whatever's going to happen there. But What we've realized is that, LinkedIn doesn't really often come up in the conversation. So I guess to kick this off, Trevor, I want to turn it over to you and say, why LinkedIn? What's the power of it? What are the possibilities? And then we'll see how that spins out from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's no doubt you just hit it on the head. It's kind of that neglected stepchild, for lack of a better reference here right now in the social media world that people don't think of because LinkedIn's long been thought of as just that static resume site where you only go when you need a job, right? And the truth of it is that it's actually the largest database of professionals using social media on the internet, right? And it's a lot of times, those senior decision makers that we're talking about that are joining at incredibly fast numbers nowadays don't even think of it as social media in the same context as a Facebook or an Instagram or a Snapchat. In fact, you could be argued that a lot of those senior decision makers are not using Snapchat yet, even though they might be starting to go towards there. They're definitely open to the idea of using LinkedIn. So just from the simple standpoint of you want to reach the kind of people that have the money, the disposable income to be able to buy the kind of things that you have to sell, LinkedIn is the place to go. It really is. It's where those decision makers are. And they're yet being invited by their trusted colleagues that's making them go, maybe I should join this LinkedIn thing and see what it's all about.
Okay, so I got to go in this direction now. I think I mean, I'm at a point now where I feel like I've neglected LinkedIn, even though I've been digging in a little bit deeper over the last little while, and I know our listeners are feeling the same way. For those listening in, Trevor, is there what would you walk them through? Because undoubtedly, there's so many people going, okay, well, that's all fine, and I'm pumped, and I want to get in on it. Is there a strategy? Is there a funnel to follow?
Your profile photo is important. Your headline is probably the second thing that I would recommend. Now, by default, when you add your first job experience into LinkedIn, it'll default to whatever that job experience is as your headline. So it'll say, car sales at X dealership, whatever that is. But you can edit that. You can actually change that out. And I recommend that you do. And again, I recommend that you change it to something that's very value driven. So it's all about, who do you help? How do you help them? Helping my clients get into their dream car faster in the Atlanta area, whatever that might, something to along those
kind
lines.
Of defines
right?
their specialization a little bit and like
exactly,
who they cater to and what they do. Now, is there length? Does length have anything to do with that? I mean, how many characters? I'm sure they limit your characters, but I mean, do you want to max that out if possible, or is it a few sentences seems to perform better, or is there any direction
and that's
there?
It's a good question. There's 120 characters available. What I suggest actually is that whatever you put in there, that you have a full, a complete thought within the first 100 characters. And the reason being is that where that headline shows up most prominently is in the who's viewed your profile section within LinkedIn. And that feature alone is by far the most popular one on LinkedIn. It's the one where you can see the other people that are looking at you, right? Everybody loves that one because it differentiates itself from every other social network. You can get a little bit of a inside look into who's checking you out,
Mm-hmm.
So those first 100 characters are the only ones that will show up in the who's viewed your profile section. The last 20 characters do not. So it's just something to keep in mind. You want to be concise within those 100 characters. And it's easy. Trying to be concise in your writing is probably one of the hardest things that you can actually do from a copywriting standpoint. But if you try and do it from the perspective of, again, just addressing who do you help, how do you help them, where are you located, and get as much of that information that you can within 100 characters, you'll leave a better first impression that makes people want to click through to find out more info. Okay.
Awesome.
So that's the second part. The third part would be your summary. Now, by default, LinkedIn does not include the summary. You actually have to manually add it, which is why I think a lot of people don't have it. I'm hoping at some point they'll make it a mandatory thing, or at least walk people through a little bit more clearly, showing them why that summary section is most important, because it's your opportunity with 3,000 characters to basically say, again, what you do, who you help, how you help them, where you're located, why they should trust you, but in a more complete thought, right? So you're not trying to squeeze it into 100 characters. You can actually write out, what exactly you specialize in, what market you're in. Here's some testimonials from my past clients. Those are super powerful. Like, anytime you can get a referral from somebody else, it's worth 10 times whatever you could possibly say about yourself. And then, creating links as well into that section too, that can drive people to your latest promotions. You can drive them to a website. You can drive them to your Facebook page where you're posting the latest vehicles that just came in on the lot that are for sale if they want to stay up to date. Because there is other channels that are still better for that kind of information, right? Like, I don't necessarily think LinkedIn is the best place from that standpoint, from a photos and photo gallery perspective.
So anything they want to drive traffic to, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have the ability to add that stuff. Yeah.
Now, that's not bio. I'm sure that comes on later. So the summary, though, is just summary kind of services and what you do. They want to stay away from making that more of about. That's not about them, right? Like, hey, I started in this, I was born here.
No. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because here's the one thing that I want people to take away from that too, is that your LinkedIn profile is not about you. It's about the people you're trying to reach. So what have you done in the past that will actually benefit them, right? So what in your experience, and this is where you can tie in your resume type background, but of what you've done, how has that helped your past clients? Because that's all anybody ever cares about, is what's in it for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's unless you're looking for a job, that's a different story. But I think we're talking mostly about sales here, right?
Yeah, definitely. All right. So summary, then another like crucial. There's other things that there's a lot of them, but so we go from the summary, which they have to. You said they have to manually add. They're not prompted to add that, correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and you can drag and drop these sections around within a LinkedIn profile. And it is fairly simple once you log in and set up that account. It's fairly simple to find those sections where you can add them in and start adding in your content. And if you want, like if you guys are struggling with anybody listening to this, just go to my profile. You can see it. You can copy it. You can take some of the styling elements out of it and make it your own too.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, because I'm looking at your profile right now. And I was going to say, it's really creative how it's been laid out. Yeah, it's very, you've done what you can with the formatting to draw the eye to certain sections, and I think it's really creative. So definitely go check that out. We'll link you guys up.
It's very
in the show
limiting
notes
what
sure.
you have available to you from a styling perspective. Like you can't bold things, you can't italicize things, you can't create active links within the summary section. You can in the media section directly below it, but you have to get a bit creative using symbols and arrows and dots and stars and all that kind of stuff. And there's a fine line there too of, not getting too busy where it looks cheesy, whereas more so it's just easier to read.
Okay, so when it comes to the profile, are those kind of the top three things that people should be looking for? Photo, headline, and summary. Is there anything else you'd add to that before diving into a little bit more strategy?
Well, there's a lot of other things, but I would say those are the main three that you want to focus on. Of course, closely followed by your experience. You want to definitely make sure that you have a good outline of your background and your experience with the different organizations or companies that you've worked with. And again, speak to what value you provided to the customers that you worked with in those roles, more so than making it all about you. And then beyond that, everything else that you can do in your LinkedIn profile is all about, just telling your story a little bit more. Like there's sections that talk about nonprofit affiliations and stuff. Those kind of things a lot of times go a long ways too. Like I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this can say that they receive referrals from people that they go to church with, or that they, volunteer on the weekends with the local dog shelter or whatever it is. Those kind of things go a long ways on your LinkedIn profile to differentiate you from somebody who's just trying to do business to be somebody that's actually a human being and contributing into the community.
And something,
so it's good stuff.
Something you said that I love, it's something that we talk about a lot on the show, is in order to be able to do those things effectively, you also need to know who your audience is. And I think that's something that a lot of people get stuck on, is just not knowing, it's that old, they're trying to talk to everybody, and as a result, they're not valuable to anybody. And we talk a lot about that on the show. So I guess, does that play into the strategy? Where does that come in, getting to know your audience and what value you offer so that you can put together a profile?
Yeah, definitely. It's really kind of the next step of, and it's kind of tied together as you're saying, because you can really fine tune your profile as you know your audience better. But realistically speaking, I'm assuming that most of your listeners deal with clients within a certain geographic region. They're not necessarily selling all over the world.
Yeah,
I'm sure some of them are, but in most cases, if you're in Seattle, you're selling cars and trucks to people that are within a 50-mile radius, right? Because that's where your radio and your print and every other form of communication that you're sending out is going. So being tightly tied to that community is important. And, just in the same way that you would go to luncheons or breakfast networking events or whatever else, you want to target the same way on LinkedIn. You don't want to be too scattered. You want to be adding value into those networks of people that you're connected to, the same in the real world as you do on LinkedIn.
Like, all right, let's say I just created my profile, right?
Yeah.
Everything's set up the way you did. I answered the 101 questions that LinkedIn asked me. So about a month later, I'm live.
Yeah,
ready
they
to
know
go.
where I went to kindergarten.
It's not that bad. I'm not trying to turn any of you guys off, because this thing is
that's just
real, man.
That's like what Trevor was saying, how powerful a database it is, right? That's to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how it became such a powerful database.
like with LinkedIn, over the last few years, they've been saying how powerful it's become as a CRM, right? A customer relationship management software, and how it's competing directly against the sales forces of the world now. And, people are struggling to go, well, how does that work exactly? It's not really a CRM. It's kind of a terrible CRM. But the truth is that, these CRMs, you're taxed with putting people's information into them. LinkedIn, they volunteer to put their information into it. They give you all of their data, like where do they work? How much experience do they have? What role type are they in? You could even, target save searches and get alerts whenever somebody changes a job so that you can see, so-and-so just got promoted to senior VP of manufacturing or sales within X company. Like, talk about a buying trigger, right? You got people that are making more money. What's their next thing? They're going and spending that money, right? They're upgrading their house. They're buying the boat. They're buying the car. They're paying for Johnny's education.
I know I would.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be
so that kind of intelligence is priceless. It's priceless.
So what's the, let's transition you, Trevor, as you're an automobile sales professional. Like, what's your move? So let's say you see things like that. Now the instinct is going to tell everybody, well, let me just go ahead and inbox this guy I don't even know. I just, connected with him and be like, hey man, heard you got a raise. Listen, you want to come blow some of that money over here? I mean, what's the, the strategy? How do you, like the actions that somebody takes once they're set up, they're ready to go? Who do they start adding? Who do they don't? Who do they want to search out, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I think I'd say this first. You have to look at LinkedIn as a marathon, not a sprint. And what I mean by that is that by taking the approach of going, oh, I saw so-and-so just got a promotion, I'm going to hit them up to see if they want to buy a car, is a mistake. LinkedIn is not a direct sales tool. LinkedIn is the mechanism for you to be able to build relationships, to get them off of LinkedIn, to then have that conversation. So you want to make sure that your presence on LinkedIn and what you're sharing and the groups that you belong to and the engagement that you're creating within that community is making those people that when they get that raise and they go, you know what, maybe I should upgrade to that new whatever car, truck. And you know what, I've seen this guy, he's been sharing a lot of information about the new, whatever that car is. What's the hottest car nowadays? I don't
the
keep
Kia
up with
Forte.
it.
No, I'm just kidding.
It changes.
There you go.
I hear the DeLoreans.
Aren't those Scions? Oh, burn. Never mind. Scion's dead.
Isn't LeBron promoting the Kia now? So that it's probably got a little.
Wait, it's not the little mice,
anyways.
the little hamsters anymore.
Yeah, does LeBron drive a Kia?
I don't. No, seriously. Maybe this is just a Canadian thing. I see these commercials. LeBron James is promoting Kias. Yeah, absolutely. It makes me want to drive one.
And
right?
no offense if you're selling Kias.
No, not at all.
Definitely. But there's room for the guy that sells Kia on LinkedIn, though, too, because LeBron drives one, so that's where you can connect with guys like him.
Absolutely, and talk about like a massive, marketing engine behind that, right? Like that's the kind of thing that could separate you from the competition. Just sharing your existing materials of, marketing that's being created by your head office. You don't have to create the material. Materials being created for you already. And again, if you look at this as a marathon, which a lot of times some people go, oh, geez, I don't have time for that. But again, I want to remind you, the people on LinkedIn are decision makers. They're people with the income. They're highly educated. If you're trying to, throw darts at the wall that is Facebook and hope that somebody's going to call you one day, you're not in the right pond, right? There's always that reference of like swimming in the right pond and using the right lure and stuff. LinkedIn is the right pond. And what you need to be doing is creating enough value in that community that when people do get that raise and they do have that disposable income and they are thinking about all their options, that they're turning to you. And if there's a few things you can do with that, like you want to make sure that you're joining the right groups on LinkedIn for one. And when I say that, the common mistake that I see people make a lot of times is they'll go to LinkedIn and they'll run through the 50 questions, as you say, that LinkedIn gives you when you're setting up your profile. And one of them is, do you want to join some groups? And in most cases, people think, well, yeah, I'll just join the car salesman group on LinkedIn. Makes sense. That's what I do, right? But the truth is
there are
that's
other car salesmen. They're never
like,
going to buy from you.
Exactly. You want to go where your target audience is. You want to go into the local Chamber of Commerce group, the local small business owners group, the local CEOs executive group, all those ones where, again, you're not going in there to sell cars. You're going in there to add value and be a valuable part of their network, which a lot of times has nothing to do with cars. It has everything to do with being helpful. It has everything to do with, might even be sharing articles about how to be more productive in your day. Why 8 hours of sleep a night will help you manage your team better. Like, these are simple examples, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be about what you're trying to sell. It's more about being a valuable part of that person's network so that they'll turn to you when they do need that car.
Yeah. And it's just about starting that relationship, because then obviously once you build a relationship with someone, it doesn't really matter on the premise or the means of why that relationship was built. But in the end, they know you, and now you do this, so it makes sense. And I was thinking, man, I think LinkedIn could be a great channel, especially in automotive when it comes to fleet. Like for the businesses that, people that want to sell that fleet cars and want to, lace out businesses and companies with new makes and models and company cars. I think it's a phenomenal.
I was thinking about you're saying all this, Trevor, and I'm going, you know what? Like, when did it change? I mean, like, I think about my dad, who was a telephone book publisher for years, like through the 80s and 90s when we still used those things. And here's a guy, he goes, you know what, I'm going to join my local like Rotary group or whatever they call them. I don't know what they call them in the States, if they're still Rotaries or whatever. But like, his objective joining the group wasn't to sell advertising in the yellow pages. It was to just be connected and build relationships with other, influential business people in the community. And so my question is, like, was it the internet that changed this all of a sudden, where it's like, all I need to do is sell. We talk a lot about the whole building relationship things and how integral that piece is in growing business. But it's almost like these days, and I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way, it's like we talk about building relationships as if it's this new, like, earth-shattering, mind-blowing thing, but it's always been that way.
It always, and you don't walk into let's say you join that local chamber of commerce group or Rotary or whatever local group you do. If you went to a physical meeting, you wouldn't walk in there and be like, "Who needs a new deal? Great deal on a new used car." I'm your guy,
exactly.
Right? And that's the equivalent.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's like, why does that happen online then? Like, and why is it this mind-blowing thing?
The keyboard. It's hiding behind the keyboard. It's people perform, and people have a hard time being them. And
and it's like, you wouldn't make yourself look like an idiot in a small group of 30 people. So definitely don't make yourself look like an idiot on the internet, when your audience is tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Absolutely. I wrote an article, it was about a week ago, and the title is "Stop Spamming Your Prospects on LinkedIn." And it's actually referencing one of your guys' past guests, Gary Vaynerchuk. He did a talk at a conference. This was very recent, actually. So I just took a little clip of it out of there, about a 40-second clip where he talked about how people feel it's appropriate to connect with you and then try and sell you something instantly on LinkedIn. Like, when did that ever become the norm in the real world, and why is it acceptable online? Well, the truth is, it's not. It's just not.
My favorite, kind of analogy with that, I think it was Ryan Dice that might have said this. It's like the equivalent of asking someone to like do business with you like that is like going out on a date with a girl and asking her to marry you like immediately on the first encounter.
Yeah.
Well, and we all know how tacky, like, I mean, I accept friend requests. It's kind of hard to, I mean, I found it a little bit more difficult to find out what people are actually all about, because it is such a professional setting versus like Facebook creeping somebody and being like, oh, okay, I have a pretty good sense of who they are as a person. So what I still find funny, and we all know this is tacky, but I get these friend requests and guaranteed like 20 minutes later, you get the thanks for connecting. I've gone through your profile and I'm convinced that you can handle this job position with Hoya Corporate. Or and I'm just reading a literal, this is one that's sitting in my in-mail right now. And so as tacky as that, we can all acknowledge that that's super tacky. That's how tacky it is when you roll into these groups and just want to sell right away without building that relationship. Yeah. So turning it back over to you, Trevor, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, understanding that you need to definitely know your audience. That's going to help you set up your profile. Mm-hmm. We've talked about building awareness and getting into different groups and kind of thinking outside the box. So, Chamber of Commerce or local business owners groups and things of that nature. What are the next steps? How do we really maximize LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, it kind of, follows up on what we're talking about there, which is, okay, well, I have these people looking at my profile. They're the right kind of people. They're the ones I want to be connected with and build relationships with. So what now, right? And truth is that there's a lot of things you could do, but you really just want to be proactive in the way that you're connecting with people. So let me give you an example. So say you are, in whatever market, again, I'll just use Seattle again as an example, and you've started to identify all the different groups that you could belong to locally, like actual physical groups, and you go and you research and you find out whether those groups exist on LinkedIn too, or some variation of that that's related to it. Join those groups, start creating saved searches within LinkedIn, which everybody has the ability to do. It's a free option within LinkedIn. And you're going to want to start looking at the profiles of those people with the only intention of just doing what you just said, which is to build awareness, which is why, again, your foundation of your LinkedIn profile being properly set up and saying the right thing is important, because you're going to get that 5 or 6 seconds for that person to go, who's this that's looking at my profile? Oh, that's what they do. Interesting. I'm going to click through. Oh, there's a link to the new product that the new Kia that they're selling that LeBron's pitching, right? Oh, I want to go check out that commercial. They go check out the commercial. They dive into the website. They come back to you because you might be the person that can answer those questions. Anyways, that's a perfect scenario. It doesn't always happen like that. But if you do have those people looking back at your profile, it's important that you are reaching back out to them, but you're doing it in a particular way. Number one is don't do it too quickly. And it's kind of like what you were alluding to a moment ago too about, if you jump on people too fast saying like, hey, I saw you viewed my profile 4 seconds ago and I'm really on the tab here to make sure that I jump on you when you do that, it's a little creepy, right? So you want to just, every 24 hours or so, you're monitoring that, who's viewed my profile section, you're seeing who's checking you out, and then you're following up with a message. That message, what I always recommend is find some commonalities, find some point of interest that you have in common with that person, whether it is you're in a local market together, you're both in a similar industry or complementary industries, you both belong to a common group on LinkedIn. LinkedIn shows you your connections that you have in common too. So a lot of times you can even reference the fact that, hey, I see that, you're connected to so-and-so, so am I. I'm looking to expand my network on LinkedIn, or I'm proactively using LinkedIn right now. I'd love to connect with you. Would you be open to that, right? That's kind of a wordy version of it, but there's some variation in there of how you could reach out to somebody to actually connect with them and get them to respond. And there's a key point of what I said there too. The last sentence where I actually ask them permission to connect. Would you be open to connecting with me, as opposed to the scripted message that's default on LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. We find that when we do that, when we're running campaigns for our clients and our members doing this as well, that we get like a 60 to 70% higher positive response rate. So people actually accepting those connection requests by simply asking them for permission to connect, as opposed to assuming that they want to connect with you. So hopefully I explained that well. Did you guys understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Because that's a big one, I think, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they just hit that blue connect button and they move on to the next person, right? Don't do that. Customize that message. Give an extra 4 seconds of your time to put the person's name in there. Hi, so-and-so. Here's the common interests we have. Would you be open to connecting with me on LinkedIn? That's simple, right? And then again, of course, your goal is to build your first degree network, because the more people you have in your first degree network, the more opportunity you have to follow up with more value add content. your whatever status updates you're doing on LinkedIn are going to show up in their feed. You have the ability to send them a direct message if you want to. And again, I wouldn't recommend just jumping on somebody right away trying to sell them something, because it's not the right way. But one thing we actually recommend to a lot of people is setting up your own group within LinkedIn, which is, kind of a bit of a more advanced way of using LinkedIn, because you're building a community and a list with that as well. But that's a very subtle way to add value to somebody's life, somebody that you're wanting to try and connect with and build a relationship with, is invite them to your local, group that you've created that's for impactful business professionals, or whatever the name of that group might be. You want to create the community and be at the center of creating that community so that you can help connect all the members together. So that's a good thing to follow up with if you are following up.
That's a good one. It's just a good excuse to follow up. That's not just a candid, hey, what up? Let's do business. Type message. Yeah. Awesome.
So it's a very subtle way to do it. There's a few other things that you can do, of course, too, but that's probably one of the best ones that we've found. From there, it's really about just staying on top of monitoring responses. It's like managing your inbox and your email. You want to see who's accepting those connection requests. When they do, give it a couple of days, follow up with a response, see if those people accept those connection requests. You can tag people within LinkedIn even too. So you might want to start using that functionality to tag them based on where they're located or what industry they're in or whatever it might be, because you talk about fleet sales, that's obviously kind of getting more into the B2B side of things, right? Business to business. And there's definitely a different approach you can take with B2B, because, from a business to consumer standpoint, people don't want to be sold anything. They just don't. They want to do their own research, and they want you to be there for them when they need you. With B2B, it's kind of different. Sometimes, when you reach out to somebody with, opportunities that could benefit them, make them look good in front of their bosses or save them money, you're actually doing them a favor. You're adding value to their lives by approaching them with a sales opportunity. So it's not always a bad thing to actually approach those, more B2B transactions with a little bit more direct ask, or a little bit more direct information gathering or providing to those types
How much
of people.
time do you set aside, to do that type of monitoring and engagement?
Well,
I guess I'm asking to you personally,
like
when you're rolling into your day, like, do you specifically set aside time so you're kind of in and out and not hanging out all day like some people might? Or, how does that look for you?
Yeah, I'm probably 15 minutes in the morning, and then I dive back in kind of midday just to see if anything else is new and updated. So I might be a half an hour to an hour per day type thing, but I'm putting that much time in because I've consciously stopped doing all the other things that are time wasters, like logging into Facebook 12 times a day just to check the feed, So I'm reassigning my efforts right now to where they're better served, because I know that my 15 minutes of monitoring and growing my network and adding value in that community is way better than posting what I had for lunch on Twitter, or, liking my sister's photos of my nieces and nephews, which I definitely do too, but I do that in the evenings.
That's not work time anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's like, you know what? Here's what I actually recommend for people, I think, on social media. Get a Snapchat account and start documenting your day to realize how boring you actually are. And from there, definitely don't take those same photos and post them on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah. This platform is meant to be separate for a reason.
Right on. So just setting a couple of intervals during the day to just keep a finger on the pulse, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I think it gets easier and it evolves as you get moving too, because one of the best ways to improve your LinkedIn presence and, even the messaging that you're using to reach out to people is to be active and see what other people are doing. So, go and see what your competitor in another market has on their profile. If you're wondering what to put on your profile, it's, I always butcher this term, but it's like, the whole idea of like good artists borrow, great artists steal, or something to that effect, right? And the truth is, that's how it is on LinkedIn too. Like, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just, if you're staying active, you're going to find ideas and you'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool, that message that I just received. I should actually do the same thing, and then follow
I was
along,
actually having this exact conversation this morning with somebody else. And they basically said, you need to understand the power of repurposing, because there really isn't anything new out there. Like, everything you need already exists. And so become a master of repurposing. Or like you mentioned even earlier, take a look at my profile, look at how I formatted my summary. And I think you even said, take it, copy it, do that sort of a thing. So modeling and repurposing what already exists that is working well, definitely a power play, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. And it stands true too for content marketing. Like, if you're trying to think of how to be active on LinkedIn without having to create original new content, because of course you can write,
curate.
You just curate, exactly. So you put together a set of Google alerts around a topic or multiple topics, and you share articles that are of interest to you that your network would be interested in too. And it's a great way to add value.
Okay, I got a quick question, Cirillo. Sorry. And I know we're getting close to the time. What about in that search feature where we're searching people out? Can you search? Does LinkedIn give you the option to search geographically?
Yeah, absolutely. You can search based on city, state, country,
zip
and then
codes,
you can actually
things like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Zip codes too. You can narrow down. I think it's within 10 miles is about the closest proximity that you can narrow down. Oh, 5 miles. I've got somebody in my office. It's 5 miles.
5 miles. That's pretty good radius. Yeah. So you can actually
very good.
You can actually get pretty dialed in using the search functionality. Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's one of the things that we teach, and I know I'm going to provide you guys with a copy of this LinkedIn funnel that we've been talking about in pieces a little bit here, but if people want to know more info, they can go and get it from you guys. But part of that search functionality too is using Boolean search terms, so the ands or the ors. So if you're looking for, VP level, you might type in VP or vice president and manufacturing, right? So if you're trying to target people that are in that industry, you can actually really narrow down with your LinkedIn search that way.
And what I like is too, as opposed to like the other platforms that I know the person listening in right now is used to, like a Facebook, even when you search out and search for people in whatever way, like sometimes their profile doesn't allow you to see if that's really somebody you want to connect with. Hey, although they're in your area code, they're not displaying publicly to non-friends X, and X what they do, where they're doing, and what. But LinkedIn, I believe, then you can pretty much have access to see if that person is right for your network or not, correct?
Yeah, there's restrictions that people can put on their accounts too. I find a lot of people don't, because they either just don't know how to or they don't think of it as a concern. But you have the ability to narrow down pretty fine-tuned and see a lot of information through LinkedIn nowadays.
Okay, so I have one more question, and then we'll wind this down just in the interest of time. You've already over-delivered. So you know what? I say this pretty much every episode, but I do literally have 5 pages of notes here because...
Hey,
there you go. Yeah, because you know what? Robert and I have been talking LinkedIn for a while, and I know just from our own agency, we go, okay, that's heavy B2B. We got to get heavy in there. Facebook, like for someone in my position, Facebook's cool, but it's, I haven't seen the as rapid traction and growth as I have just working LinkedIn. But here's my question. I know, because a lot of people are going to be wondering this. Okay, we've got on the front end, we figured out our audience, we're monitoring, we're a part of groups, we're contributing. When is the right time or what is the right format to get down to the nitty gritty, so to speak, so that I'm not sending a message that reflects, I think I've gone through your profile and I am convinced that, what's the right way to pick up that conversation?
You need a new car.
What's the right way to reach out to your network and try and take that conversation off
basically,
of LinkedIn, you mean?
We've done all the jabs. Now we want to get down to a right hook. When and how?
The Gary V reference. Yeah. There's a few different methods for that. And I think that, again, it kind of comes down to taking the time to make sure that you built the trust to allow the opportunity to do that, first of all. So that would be the first thing I would caution against is, please, again, don't look at LinkedIn as a sales tool or even something that you might ever even try and pitch somebody on, right? But that being said, there's a lot of things like, of course, dealerships and stuff, they run promotions all the time, right? So you sharing that information on your feed within groups, that type of thing, is a very subtle way without a direct ask to be able to capture the attention of people that might be interested in it, right? Now, you may want to go directly into the inbox of somebody by sending messages with that same thing. But again, you just have to be aware of and okay with the fact that you might burn that relationship by being too direct. But sometimes you don't get what you don't ask for too. Attitude is the better way to go too, right? Like, as long as you're not doing it in a very spammy way and you're actually, reaching out to people about, promotions that are going on at that time where you really could save them a lot of money, or that they own a 3-year leased vehicle and it's time for an upgrade soon, and it's something that's would benefit them to get out of that lease and into the new truck, then you popping into their world at the right time is actually a welcome thing in some cases, right? Because most times people don't even think about that until the salesperson actually reaches out to them. So, I think the one thing with LinkedIn too that I'll leave you guys with is that differentiates it, where people might want to experiment with this, is that, people's inboxes are getting so filled nowadays with all kinds of stuff. Like, email in general is so overwhelming for people that when people see a LinkedIn message show up in their inbox, they're more likely to open that up and actually give it their time, at least enough time to look at it, right? A lot of times people just delete regular emails nowadays. So experimenting with LinkedIn messages and doing direct message is a good thing. And I think you're going to see a higher response rate than just from regular email. So, it's worth experimenting with that and trying it out around deals that you might be having at your dealership at that time.
What about linking them to helpful content too? Like, let's say, do I want to link?
Yeah.
Them? I can link them to like a blog post even that's about like 5 fleet, for companies. I'm just using fleet because we keep talking about that. So 5, tips or strategies or best practices when you're looking to lease a new fleet for your employees or something like that. I mean, is that good practice? Like, hey, I publish this article. I really think this will help you a lot with your company's vehicles or something like that. I mean,
that's a great example.
Thing.
Yeah, that's a great example because it's not a direct sales ask where it's, hey, let's hop on the phone. I think I can help you. It's more, hey, here's a trend that I'm seeing in the industry, or here's something that I know to be true because I do this every day, and you might only think of it, Mr. Sales Prospect, once, 5% of your job type thing, right? Like, when should you be flipping your fleet for new product, right? For new cars and trucks. So, and by creating content too, like you bring up a good point. We haven't really talked about publishing content on LinkedIn, but it's such a great way to establish expertise. So if you can put out content that's like a 5 tips to why, you should upgrade your fleet vehicles now and not in 2017, whatever that might be, and then share that with your network, it does become an attention grabber and value add to that end user, right? Because they might want to know, well, wait a second, what am I missing out on? Is there something that's going to happen in the economy that makes me want to buy now versus next year? I better read this, And because you're the one that's writing it, you get seen as the authority.
Yeah, you get
too.
to become an influencer, and it gives ammunition to some other people for them to share out and kind of be the sub-influencer for their network.
And this is posted natively in LinkedIn, or are you linking like a post you did back on your home base at your website or blog?
Well, you can publish on both. Like, one of the things we recommend is that, because there's a lot of discussions out there on whether or not duplicate content through Google search is a bad thing, and I'm hearing more and more that it's not. Like, to publish on your blog and on LinkedIn the exact same content is not being punished by Google. Now, who knows if that's going to change? We always actually recommend that you tweak things slightly, but you're just hitting people in different places. Some people like reading on a blog, some like reading on LinkedIn.
Well, and you know what?
So,
to that point too, just like hitting it from a from a strictly distribution model. I mean, if your play is long-term organic SEO with all the credibility being on the original post, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be so many varying opinions about duplicate content, but I mean, if your play is like screw like organic for a second, I just want to be everywhere where there is already an audience. Use the distribution methods the same as a magazine distributor would do it, or a print distributor. They just get they want that piece in front of audience, and so in that context, strictly, I think who cares, You've got the audience.
Well, and there's pros and cons to both scenarios, but the obvious pro of publishing on your blog is that you have some ownership over that blog because you own the domain, own the website itself. But LinkedIn has the built-in audience. So how do you argue against that, right? And the other thing I wanted to say about that too, that's just popped into my head, I was listening to a podcast. I think it was actually Gary V had Seth Godin on recently, and I think Tim Ferriss did too. Actually, I think Seth must be doing the speaking the speaking circuit, the podcast circuit. But anyways, he talked about the value of publishing one piece of content every day, and to not stress yourself out over like, what would I possibly write every single day? It might just be 2 paragraphs of your thoughts about what's going on in the market, what's going on in your industry, what predictions you see in the future. And what it does is it creates a lasting legacy of you being on top of this space, right? It creates trust with people to go, wow, this person's been in this industry for 15 years and they've been writing content around it. And they actually saw that this trend was starting to happen and it ended up being a good time to buy a vehicle now versus next year. Geez, they know their stuff, right? It creates that expertise that's tough to duplicate without actually just writing content and putting yourself out there.
Right on. Okay, so you know what? This episode was filled with power bombs and useful information for those of you listening in. Definitely want to get you connected with Trevor so that you can take advantage of pretty much everything else that's floating around in his brain. Dude, we could have gone for another hour. It went by, and I'm serious, man. I took a ton of notes. Super glad to have you on the show. But as we wind down here, I want to turn it over to you. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, the best place is I have my own personal website at trevorturnbull.com, TURNBULL, and I'm all over, social as well. LinkedIn, of course, guys, hit me up on LinkedIn. Go check out my profile. Send me a connection invite too. Tell me that you listen to this podcast when you do. Give me some context as to how I would know you or know who you are. But happy to accept all connection requests there too and help people out. I'm on Twitter as well. Starting to dive more into Instagram. I use it more for my company brands than I do personally, but hey, a little bit at a time. But those are the best places, and that's where you can find out more information about all these training programs that we have too, because like the 30-day sales machine, for example, like I say, I'll give you guys access to this LinkedIn funnel we were talking about so that everybody can download this PDF. It's got those step-by-step instructions, some of the stuff we were talking about here today. There'll also be a link on there that people can go to check out, more information about 30-day sales machine, what it's all about, how it works, how our system works, the support systems we have in place, just everything you need to kind of get that kickstart and the accountability and the motivation you need to see results from LinkedIn.
Yeah. Although we don't have a long enough podcast to cover all of that, so that's why we wanted to make that available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody.
Exactly.
Trevor,
Thanks a lot.
man. This was awesome, man. I know I learned a lot, man. Thank you so much for the time, man.
It's my pleasure, guys. Thanks very much for having me.
All right. I tried to tell you this was going to be a little bit longer than usual, but we just couldn't end this one, man, because it just kept going and going and going with awesome information. So what'd you think of Trevor there?
Yeah, and I was going to say, and that was not, let me just say that's not because of Trevor. I mean, the dude's a busy guy, and so we're super appreciative that he even was willing to entertain us that long, but it was because of us, man. Like, we have so many questions about LinkedIn because, like you heard through the episode, I've been digging in, Robert's been digging in, and the traction that we've been able to pick up in a short period of time. And I think, because of a lot of the things that Trevor brought up in this episode, it is a professional platform. It's where the decision makers and the money makers are. And so, thinking about that in the context of car sales, like, we've even bounced ideas back and forth about how to dive into LinkedIn. And it was funny just right at the beginning of the episode how easy the connection was. Like, oh, it's where all the disposable income people are hanging out. So as a sales professional, why wouldn't I want to be there and building relationships with them?
No doubt, man. I mean, this was good. I mean, we started this from, this was started with some 101, because it's so important to get the profile and everything dialed in. I'll tell you what, like we said there, I mean, I literally have a bunch of notes of things that I know that I'm going to go back and start doing to my existing profile.
Yeah, for
and again,
sure.
he offered he nice enough to give you access to like kind of model your profile after his. Feel free to do that. So his link to his, you'll be able to catch up with his LinkedIn profile into the show notes. Make sure you give him a connection. And like he said, give him the context on where you found him from. And also in the show notes, you'll be able to get access to his, LinkedIn funnel, to where it can help you starting to create some leads and opportunities in your marketplace from LinkedIn. That'll all be in the show notes. What do you have to add, Cirillo?
Yeah, so definitely go check them out, www.thedealerplaybook.com/85. We're also on YouTube and iTunes and Stitcher. So if you're hanging out with us there, thank you so much. Guys, let us know what you thought about this episode. We know there was a ton of info here.
Yeah, and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, connect with us on LinkedIn for sure. We'd love to hang out with you guys there. Until next time, man, let's roll this thing out.